The following video will do overt disclosure of how I'm doing it, where I'm doing it, and all data. I'm using Google Earth Portable version 7 from 2019. We'll then close that little window. And I created a Google pin for my data here. On or before the 3rd of January 2026, a website called National Post posted a story. It claimed to show a satellite image of somewhere near or on a mountain near Caracas, Venezuela, which is at 10.47 by negative 66.7 approximately. Claiming this image came from a compilation of images shown at a meeting by the Mackenzie Institute, quote, days before. Remember, this is a journalistic source we're supposed to be trusting for useful information or critical information that used the last Tuesdayism days before. Criticism of National Post. What was the exact day? Where was this? Where can we go get the image from? Where is the source data that you used? How did you acquire it? Etc. They gave a long, drawn-out, looping story that would make a person not want to fact-check it. There, I said it out loud. Next. This was a story published on January 3rd because that's when the United States attacked Venezuela that time. It claimed to show in the image 3 rows of what they describe as someone claiming to be missile tubes. And they're totally not 3 rows of pig troughs. That's totally not it. I'm not foreshadowing here. Now, this was attributed to Lee Wheelbarger, who's also known as kquDT News or World News or variations thereof because he's using his 3 initials. And it's not a satellite image. It's a Google Earth screenshot. Their thumbnail and their explanation doesn't tell you what software was used, doesn't show you where it was place named, because there's a mountain nearby it's going to be named, as illustrated by the rest of the image we're looking at, and it didn't include something as simple as a GPS location, which you can do by just saying it or typing it out. So, number 1, National Post should not be considered a credible source for information because they didn't eliminate ambiguity and answer questions before they're asked. Where and when weren't given because when was the image taken? We're going to be exploring that. Now, I'm going to be zooming in on a particular location, but I want to point out this is attributed to Lee Wheelbarger. I'm going to say I don't believe Lee Wheelbarger would leave out so much information, nor am I saying the Mackenzie Institute did. I don't believe either of these sources have to respond to this video by clearing up the ambiguity that's intentionally created. I'm blaming the National Post. Or they can publish a retraction or an explanation that they weren't given these little details and somehow didn't think it was important. Okay, let's get on with this. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 named mountains that are, quote, mountains by Caracas, Venezuela. This is the one thing I typed into the search thing to bring up as many of them as possible. I'm sure there are other places that are named something like a mountain, but the point is, mountains by definition internationally and nationally, depending on where you are, but mostly internationally, are defined as being a certain amount of height from the peak down to what's considered the flat area in the area. A little peak on top of a big mountain isn't the peak of the mountain as a separate mountain. It's part of the mountain. These have to be significant altitude heights. Now, that's how they define them. But someone can call something a mountain, or someone can vaguely do so, or in our case, not tell us which goddamn mountain. So let's go on. The mountain here called Alto something, we're going to zoom on really quickly to show that it's surrounded by housing. This is an occupied area. This is a very densely populated area. Let's go to the upper left-hand corner one, while Google Earth basically tries to scream and cry because I'm trying to use it for something. Now let's zoom in on something for scale. We're going to use it for scaling. First of all, we're looking at buildings here. This is smeared because the image was taken at an angle because, again, it's not a satellite image. Even satellite images will have an angle to them. It's too high over resolution, number one. Number two, it's got too much of a smear factor to certain parts of the image. That means it was taken from an aerial camera strapped underneath a Cessna or something. That's how most of the images, in fact, virtually all of them are. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see shit. Now we have here, I'm going to call this a building. And I'm going to say these are little trees and or large shrubs, and that some of these are trees. Now, when we hover over it, it shows that it's at 10.5 by negative 67 degrees. It's almost exactly that number. So you can say 10.5 by negative 67, and that would give you the ability to find a spot. Now we're at altitude of, let's say, 680 feet on our Google Maps. Let's go ahead and zoom back out. We're going to use that as a reference point because we're going to zoom in on something very important here. Move, you piece of crap. This is a road trail. Without that information, some reference to dimensions, we don't know how big the trails are. They could be footpaths like these, or they could be road trails. The image that I'm talking about that I'm not showing could be of a road trail leading to some place. Or it could be a walking trail. That is significant, and that is ambiguous on purpose. Now we're going to zoom in on El Avila. We're going to zoom in and try to get it to 500 feet like we did before, let's say. Let's do 700. Again, for scale, this is a road. This is probably a foot trail, but it could also be a road, just a one lane. So we can do our reference point. Again, doing due diligence and transparency. If you're not aware of it, everywhere north of this city, except for that one, is probably going to be green space with nothing else. If there's nothing else there, it's a foot trail. So we're zoomed in at 1,200 feet. Let's get it down to 500 or so. Close enough. That's a foot trail or a one-lane road. Let's go over here. Pico Oriental. Get it down to here. Those are foot trails. They're not roads. They might be roads. They might even be streams. But we have to have scale. And now I'm going to show you our first anomaly that's still visible. Because they mosaic these together from hundreds of image sources over decades now, you're going to get this kind of tiling effect where you get this image on the left here. It's a separate image that is smearing. This indicates the picture was taken from our lower right or the southeast. That means this image is on the upper left-hand corner of probably a photo taken by a camera underneath an airplane. Not always, but usually. Here we get smearing here from what appears to be the north. I'm going to call it the north east again. Okay, again, it's an airplane. I'll show you what satellite images look like in a minute if you want to wade through this video. Let's keep moving. We're going to go over here to Topo Orissimo, and we get our first anomaly in text, where it's duplicating it. If you're not aware of it, Google Earth uses a cloud system that uses basically the rough equivalent to Photoshop to do these images. Yeah, this is Photoshopped together as you're watching or looking at it, including on Google Earth and Google Maps. This is Google Earth. Should mention that. Let's emphasize that. Let's not lie about what software you're using. I'm not using something that's super secret. Here we see a knitting spot from two different times. Let's zoom in on it from here. So it's excluding everything else. And this says it's 2023, May 2nd, probably. Now we go over here and look at this topo yada yada, zoom in on it. It says it's May 2nd as well, but it would be from a later part of the day. And you can see that line that you can't unsee anymore. Okay, now we're going to go over here to kquDT, or the nougat spot. Now we're going to just zoom in here and look at this within context. In context means I leave something on the screen instead of disabling labels, because that would be deceptive. I'm not disabling labels, and I'm showing you this. Now, because you are inside a building most likely, you will view this and say to yourself, well, I should use a reference point of looking down on something like this. The light in my room is above my eyes. I will assume the shadows that way. If I rotate this, which I call Dutch angling, which a lot of YouTubers do, they rotate it like this or something like that, and now it becomes ambiguous because the shadow's left to right. You don't know what it is. What was north to south or east to west is now confusing. Now we're going to do the time tunnel really quickly, and I'm going to go back in time and show you what a satellite image looks like. Let's go back to this notch. That's 2004 beginning of winter. Now we have it in context with the Nugget. Let's go back one damn notch. 1985, that's what a satellite image looked like in 1985. The newer ones are slightly better. They're about double the resolution. But you wouldn't be able to see much. So the time and date stamp of the image we're talking about, or trying not to talk about, is very important. Let's go forward until we get an unambiguous image that shows us real detail of this area. Remember, I rotated and altered it, but now the sunlight should be coming from above. Now over here, you can see the shadow this way. I'm going to rotate it to where the shadow matches as best we can. Let's see if I can do this without the computer crashing. It really wants to. And because of the lines in it, that's probably a mixture of satellite image data or them trying to enhance. Let's go forward one notch, and suddenly we see our deep underground bunker thing. Wait a minute, that wasn't a hole in the ground. It's a ridge that has white chalk material coming out of it. Or if I double click this, we see that it really is a hole in the ground. Again, we got to put it in context by showing the reference point, the nearest geographic point, move it forward, and now we see more anomalies. The anomalies we're seeing are reality. We'll see clouds, we will see shadows, we'll see shadows from the clouds, but what we see consistently, if we were able to look up the location, is whether or not over time it changed in a way that is significant. Yes, it's a shadow coming from below. That means your brain is going to flip it upside down in your head and think that it's sticking up when it's sticking in. A cave will look like a peak. Without context and without the GPS location and the other data, we don't know what we're looking at. And if anybody's curious, this appears to be a mine that was petered out and it drained over years. Also want to point out if those were tailings or not. And again, we see smearing because this was an image that was taken, part of this was an image that was taken by a aerial camera. A Cessna flying over with a camera strapped to it. Now I would turn off that stuff because, God, that's annoying. All of these images you're looking at, when you look at this without time tunneling, are mosaic together, sometimes poorly, sometimes so well you can't see it. And you have to tear apart the image. Someone posting an image on the internet claiming that it's a place that obviously has missiles, when it was maybe, potentially, pig troughs. It's a pig farm. Prove me wrong. If Lee Wheelbarger is really responsible for this, and I know he's watching this channel because he obsessively posts into my comments section, and I have to erase him half the time because he's really, really objectively violent and angry. All he has to do is a video where he does this. I'm going to do it the way he should. Let's see how long it takes. Here we go. kquDT. I'm going to give you the location of this deep underground bunker. Here we go. It's near kquDT. We're at elevation 4,300 feet in the Google Maps. I showed you what it is. And its location is exactly 10.5454 by negative 66,78553. There. That took less than a minute, and all he has to do is that video. And not make it a short, put it up in full resolution like this, and put it up on his channel and leave it up telling us where the image was taken from, and maybe, I don't know, admitting that he just used Google Earth to do the imagery, and he's not using some really exciting super secret software that only he can get a hold of unless he's in the CIA. Again, that's all he has to do, is what I just did, which consists of a couple of like half a minute of data, and someone doing what I'm showing you right here on the screen that I can do while I'm talking to you with almost no prep. If he can't do this, or if he won't, he wasn't the source of the image and they're lying, or he isn't willing to have you fact check him. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. And yeah, I'm sure it was a pig farm. Bye.